And so I'll start with a question, and I recognize that the question is a big one, and we can spend some time deconstructing it. But why do you think, in your experience in writing the book, your own lived experience, why is it so hard for us to love ourselves?
I think a lot of such a high level, we're not really designed to live in the world that we're in. The world has evolved so quickly, and what we consider the normal world or modern life is only a couple of hundred years old. But as creatures that we are, it takes hundreds of thousands of years for us to evolve. So I think a lot of the issues are we're on old software in a new world, and our understandings of love or definitions of love have become skewed because of that. We live in a society that wants us to buy a lot of stuff and recognize value in that stuff. So I think the reason it's the challenge is because we don't have an understanding of what love is, but also we're also designed through survival to always look for what's wrong. You know, Paranoia kept us alive in dangerous situations. Now we're not really in dangerous situations anymore, but those alarm bells are still going off. So what's happening is that you're constantly looking at yourself in the mirror. You're going to constantly be looking for things that are out of place because our brains are going to be ignoring the things that are in place. Same thing with the furniture set up in your house. Same thing with the smells in your home. All of these things, anything that's normal, your brain will ignore. Anything that is new, not other place will stand out. So we're constantly evaluating and looking for things that stand out. And when it comes to ourselves, those generally count as flaws. And then when we think we have flaws, we think we need to improve. We think we need to become something. We need to become something else. And then you combine that with the fact that, we're in such large societies now where this concept of dating and mating has become so prevalent, we start to equate that game with love. So, the things that we have to do to get a first date or to get a second date or just to get a cute girl's phone number, we start to equate that with love when none of that has anything to do with love. That's a whole different game. So I think it's difficult for us to love ourselves because we have been programmed for survival to seek validation from the outside world first. Because 5, 6,000 years ago, if you were living in a village and the people of your village, they ostracized you or they rejected you, that meant death. That meant you were sent out and you were left out to die. So those feelings and that fear of death is still within us, but it's not being triggered now by our life being in danger. It's being triggered by FOMO. It's being triggered by rejection. It's being triggered by not feeling like we fit in. And then so often we'll tell ourselves stories if we already have those feelings just to confirm that bias.
Yeah, and we look at everybody's social media reels, which are completely curated, and you go on there. I know for myself, if I spend too much time on Instagram, I can almost feel my mood. I'm like, gosh, I'm not doing enough with my life. I'm just worthless. All I've done is this and this and this and this. These people do that and then that. And I think I forget is it Dunbar's? I think we're only really meant to have like 150 or so connections, right? So, and even that's quite a bit. But if you come from, my family is Portuguese and Lebanese, and my husband is Italian. So there's these big, huge there's the swaths of people, right? So and I would imagine, reading your book and your upbringing, family is very much like you sort of all stick together. But that 150 number seems to reign true. So now where you have Instagram account, even if it's more than 150, you have 1,000 people on your Instagram account. That is way more than we're sort of neurologically wired to be able to process. And if you could have 999 of those people saying, "Humble, that was the best thing ever." And then one person's like, "God, that actually sucked." That's all we can, to your point around being able to only see the negative, we can really ruminate on the one negative or the 1%, or maybe it's even 10%. Maybe it's 10 people that think that, what you've put out is not whatever it is up to a certain level. And that's what we ruminate on. And that's what we think about. We don't think about the 900 of them that are singing your praises and thinking what you're putting out into the world is poetic and beautiful and important. One of the things that you talked about in terms of love is when we are thinking about love and maybe our own journey of healing, it's more about starting something than it is about stopping. And I think part of that is maybe letting go of what we know, that which no longer serves us, versus adding things that we really want. Can you expand on that a little bit? And that sort of speaks to the survival tactic a little bit as well. But why is it so hard for us to let go versus adding, versus adding what we want?
So I used to be an elementary school teacher. And what we learned is when you speak to the kid, don't tell them to stop something, tell them to start something. So instead of saying stop talking, you can say sit quietly, right? So it's the same, you're giving them the same information, but you're saying it as you give them something to do versus trying to get them to hit a wall. So I think it's really important just to reframe your language accordingly. Like, what can I start doing versus what I'm supposed to stop doing? Because it's still important to let go of a lot of things.
It's
And
a
I
good
think
parenting.
also,
It's a good parenting tip too. Just
yeah,
like, we always talk to our kids like, stop doing that. You shouldn't say that. You should. It's like, well, what should I do? How should I say it? How should I be? Yeah.
exactly. It really is focusing on what you can start doing versus what you should stop doing, because there's also like a level of reprimand and to stop versus giving somebody new instructions. It's also less of a criticism on who they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's also like, if you're helping a friend cook, they say start with the potatoes, while you were cutting the onions. You don't feel any slighted way about them, commenting on what you're doing, because they're telling you what needs to be done now. So I
Yeah.
think it's really important. How we speak to ourselves is extremely important. And how we speak to ourselves is the benchmark for how we allow other people to speak to us. So everything really goes back down to our relationship with ourselves and having a lot of grace to realize that we're not in a situation where things are optimized for us to be kind to ourselves, for us to be easy on ourselves. But the truth is, we can be as critical and as judgmental as we want. Nothing good comes from it. We don't gain any results being overly critical. We don't gain any results beating ourselves up. So we just have to take a step back and be like, well, that isn't working. Let's try something else. And oftentimes, I always think back to my time as a teacher is because I was speaking to little children, and it was very often you have to find the kindest way to say it. And it was like, hey, what if I did that to myself? What if I was supposed to wake up early today and work on a book chapter and I didn't? It's calling myself lazy, stupid, and idiot. Is that going to get me to work harder? It's like, or saying, hey, we're supposed to do this. We didn't get a chance to do it. How are we going to make up for it? You know what? Let's try again later in the afternoon. You know what? Let's take today off. That's okay. You needed the rest. You were tired. Tomorrow, we're going to do it, but we're going to make sure we go to sleep earlier tonight. And it's that same positive reinforcement that I think makes quite a difference. Um, it's not even about just speaking to ourselves positively. It's also recognizing the damage of the negative speak. Some relationship advice is for every one negative thing you say to a person, you have to say between 5 and 20 positive things to balance it out. The weight of those things are not equal. And this entire book, although it doesn't give tips for your friendships, for your family, for your romantic relationships, it really is about your relationship with yourself. And your relationship with yourself sets the tone for any other relationship you'll ever have.